The woman walked onto the set carrying a brown paper bag. John Wayne saw her, saw the bag, and 20 years of guilt showed on his face. West Texas. Summer 1969. The set of a Western nobody would remember the name of 5 years later. Another dusty town built from plywood and paint. Another story about honor and violence, and men who lived by codes that no longer existed, if they ever had. John Wayne was 62 years old. His left lung was gone, taken by cancer the year before. He moved slower now. Breathed harder. But he still showed up. Still wore the costume. Still did the work. The morning had been routine. 3 takes of a scene where Wayne's character confronted a corrupt sheriff. The dialogue was forgettable. Wayne delivered it with the same economy he'd used for 40 years. No wasted words, no wasted movement. Say what needs saying. Do what needs doing. Go home. They broke for lunch at noon. The Texas sun hammered down on the fake buildings and the real dust. Wayne walked toward his trailer, hat still on, boots still dusty, moving with that careful deliberation of a man who knew his body was betraying him but refused to show it. That's when he saw her. An elderly woman. Late 60s, maybe 70. Black dress despite the heat. Weathered face. Hands that had worked. She stood at the edge of the set, just past the equipment trucks, holding a brown paper grocery bag against her chest. She was looking directly at him. Wayne stopped walking. The crew around him kept moving, grips adjusting equipment, script supervisor checking notes, other actors heading to lunch. But Wayne stood still in the middle of the dirt street, 20 feet from the woman, staring at that bag. He knew. Somehow, instantly, he knew. The woman took a step forward. Then another. Wayne didn't move toward her. He just waited, hands hanging at his sides, that weathered face showing nothing to anyone who didn't know how to look. But his eyes showed everything. She stopped 5 feet from him and held out the bag. "Mr. Wayne," she said quietly. Her voice had the flat accent of Oklahoma or Kansas. Dust Bowl country. Depression country. "My name is Dorothy Henshaw. My husband was Robert Henshaw. First Lieutenant, United States Army. He died in Korea in 1951. Wayne looked at the bag. Then at her face. He nodded once. "Ma'am. You wrote him a letter," Dorothy continued. "In 1950. Before he shipped out. He showed it to me. He carried it with him. It was in his jacket pocket when..." She stopped, composing herself. "When they sent his things home." Wayne's jaw tightened. Still he said nothing. "In that letter you made him a promise. You told him that if anything happened to him you'd..." Dorothy's voice cracked slightly. "You'd make sure his son knew. Knew that his father was a hero. That he didn't die for nothing." The set had gone quiet around them. Crew members had stopped moving. Other actors had paused their conversations. Everyone was watching now, though they pretended not to. Wayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "How old is your boy now?" Wayne's voice was low, careful. "He's 21. He's home from Vietnam. Came back 3 months ago." Wayne closed his eyes briefly. Opened them. "What's his name?" "Robert Jr. We call him Bobby." "Bobby know his daddy?" "He was 2 when Robert died. He doesn't remember him." "And I..." Dorothy's composure finally broke. Tears ran down her weathered cheeks. "I tried to tell him. About the hero his father was. About what Robert believed in. But Bobby came home from Vietnam angry. At the war. At the government. At men who sent him there. At..." She gestured vaguely. "At everything. He says his father died for nothing. That all those men died for nothing." Wayne looked at the bag again. "What's in there, ma'am?" Dorothy held it out further. "Your letter to Robert. His bronze star. His purple heart. His wedding ring. And something else. Something I found in Robert's footlocker that I never understood until last week." She reached into the bag and pulled out a smaller item, a photograph, old and faded. She handed it to Wayne. The photograph showed a young soldier in Korea, sitting in what looked like a mess tent, holding up a newspaper. The headline was partially visible, something about John Wayne and a movie. The soldier was smiling, pointing at the paper. On the back, in faded pencil, someone had written, "Duke says we're doing something that matters." I believe him. Wayne stared at that photograph for a long time. His thumb traced the edge of it, careful not to smudge the writing. When he looked back up at Dorothy, his eyes were wet. "I wrote a lot of letters during Korea," he said quietly. "To boys heading over. To families who'd lost someone. He paused, struggling with something. "I didn't serve. In the war. Any war. I had deferments. Family. Then age. Then—" he gestured vaguely. "It don't matter why. Point is, I didn't go. So I wrote letters. Like that made up for it. Robert treasured that letter," Dorothy said firmly. "It meant everything to him." Wayne handed the photograph back to her. "Ma'am, I can't take these things. They belong to your boy." "I know. That's why I'm here." Dorothy took a deep breath. "Bobby won't listen to me about his father. Won't look at the medals. Won't read Robert's letters home. He says it's all propaganda. Says men like you sold a lie to men like his father." Wayne absorbed this without reaction. "But last week," Dorothy continued, "I was watching you on television. That interview. Where you talked about the cancer. About still working. About—" she paused, searching for words. "About doing what you can with what you have. And Bobby was watching too." And for the first time in months, he said something that wasn't angry. He said, "At least Wayne shows up." Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. Wayne looked past Dorothy at the fake western town. The plywood buildings. The painted signs. The illusion of something that never existed, built so people could believe in it for 90 minutes. "Where's your boy now?" he asked. "He's in my car. Wouldn't come to the set. Said he didn't want to meet anyone from Hollywood. But he drove me here. That's something." Wayne nodded slowly. He looked at the bag again. At the medals and letters and memories of a man he'd never met but had promised something to 20 years ago. "Ma'am," Wayne said, and his voice carried that quality of decision, the sound of a man who'd made up his mind and would not be moved. "I need you to do something for me. Take that bag back to your car. And bring your boy here. Tell him John Wayne wants to talk to him. Not about his daddy. Not about the war. Just talk." Dorothy's eyes widened. "Mr. Wayne, I couldn't ask you to." "You didn't ask. I'm telling you. Bring him here." Away from the cameras, Wayne made a choice no one expected. Wayne turned to his assistant director, a young man named Patterson who'd been hovering nearby pretending not to listen. "Patterson, we're done for the day. Send everybody home. John, we've got 3 more scenes scheduled." "I said we're done. Pay everybody for a full day. We'll make it up tomorrow." Patterson opened his mouth to argue, saw Wayne's expression, and closed it again. "Yes, sir." Wayne looked at his co-star, an actor named Brennan who'd worked with him on 5 pictures. "Dennis, I need your trailer. Just for an hour." Brennan didn't hesitate. "It's yours." "And Dennis? Have someone bring coffee. Real coffee, not that craft services swill. And—" Wayne paused, thinking. "And see if there's any of that chocolate cake left from yesterday. The good kind?" Brennan nodded and walked away to make it happen. Wayne turned back to Dorothy. "Go get your boy. I'll be waiting in that trailer. The one with the blue door. You bring him there." Dorothy clutched the bag tighter. "What are you going to say to him?" "I don't know yet, ma'am. But I made a promise to his daddy 20 years ago. And I intend to keep it." Dorothy Henshaw walked back toward the parking area, moving faster now, carrying that brown paper bag like it held something precious, which it did. Wayne stood alone in the empty street of the fake town, surrounded by the evidence of make-believe, and waited for a real thing to arrive. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the trailer door. Wayne opened it. Dorothy stood there, and beside her, a young man. Bobby Henshaw. 21 years old. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Wearing civilian clothes that hung loose on him, he'd lost weight since coming home. His hair was longer than military regulation. His jaw was set in that defensive way of someone expecting a fight. "Mr. Wayne," Dorothy said. "This is my son, Bobby." Wayne looked at the young man. Bobby looked back, his expression somewhere between hostility and uncertainty. "Son," Wayne said, and gestured inside the trailer. "Come in. Your mama too." They entered. The trailer was small. A couch, a table, 2 chairs, a coffee maker. Dennis Brennan's cologne still hung in the air. Someone had brought the coffee and cake Wayne requested. It sat on the table, untouched. Wayne gestured to the couch. "Sit." They sat. Dorothy still held the bag. Bobby sat rigid, hands on his knees, looking like he wanted to bolt. Wayne pulled one of the chairs around and sat facing them. He took off his hat and set it on the table. Without it, he looked older. Tireder. The scar from his lung surgery was barely visible at the collar of his costume shirt. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Wayne leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and looked directly at Bobby. "Your mama says you think your daddy died for nothing." Bobby's jaw tightened. "Sir, I didn't come here to." "I'm not arguing with you," Wayne interrupted quietly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe Robert Henshaw died in a war that didn't need fighting. Maybe Korea was a mistake. Maybe Vietnam was worse. I don't know. I wasn't there. Neither war." Bobby blinked, surprised. "But I'll tell you what I do know," Wayne continued. "I know your daddy believed what he was doing mattered. I know he carried my letter in his pocket because something I wrote made him feel that way. And I know that for 20 years, I've carried around the fact that I wrote letters to men going to war while I stayed home making movies about war." Dorothy started to speak, but Wayne held up a hand. "I'm not looking for absolution, ma'am. I'm just stating a fact. I didn't serve. A lot of reasons for that. Some good, some not. But the result is the same. Men like your husband went. Men like me didn't." He turned his attention back to Bobby. "So here's what I'm going to tell you, and you can believe it or not. Your daddy didn't die because of some politician's decision or some general's strategy. He died because he believed in something bigger than himself. Right or wrong, smart or stupid, he believed it. And that kind of belief, that willingness to stand up when you don't have to, that's not nothing." Bobby's defensive posture had softened slightly. "You don't understand what it's like. Over there. The things we..." "You're right. I don't. And I can't. But your mama asked me here because she's afraid you've forgotten who your daddy was. Not the uniform. Not the medals. The man." Wayne gestured to the bag. "That's why she brought those things. To show you." Dorothy slowly opened the bag. She took out the letter first, Wayne's letter from 1950, yellowed and creased from being carried. She handed it to Bobby. Bobby unfolded it carefully. His eyes scanned the handwriting, Wayne's handwriting, neat and deliberate. "Dear Lieutenant Henshaw, a friend told me you're shipping out to Korea next month. I wanted to write and tell you that what you're doing matters. I know that sounds hollow coming from a man who makes pictures for a living while men like you do the real work. But I believe it. You're going because you believe in something. Because you think it's right. That's what separates men from boys, the willingness to stand for something even when it costs everything. I can't promise you'll come home. Nobody can. But I can promise that if you do what you believe is right, that matters. It always matters. If you have a family, hold them close before you go. Tell them what they mean to you. And if you don't come back, know that someone will remember. Someone will tell your story. I give you my word on that. Respectfully, John Wayne. Bobby read it twice. When he looked up, his eyes were red. He carried this, Bobby said quietly. In combat. Yes, Dorothy whispered. Wayne reached over and took the medals from the bag, the bronze star, the purple heart. He held them carefully, then placed them on the table between himself and Bobby. Your daddy kept his word, Wayne said. He stood for something. Now here's the hard part, son. You have to decide if you're going to keep his memory honest by living like that mattered, or spend the rest of your life angry that he believed in something you don't. Bobby stared at the medals. At the letter. At the man sitting across from him who'd kept a promise for 20 years. I don't know how, Bobby said finally. How to live with it. What I saw. What I did. Wayne nodded slowly. Neither do I. But you show up. Every day. You do what you can with what you have. And you honor the men who didn't make it home by not wasting the life they gave you. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Wayne stood, took off his belt, the Western costume belt with its oversized buckle, and handed it to Bobby. This is from the first picture I did after Korea ended. Been wearing it in Westerns ever since. It's made-believe. A prop. But to me, it represents something. Showing up. Doing the work. I want you to have it. Remind you that even when you don't know what you're doing, you still show up. Bobby took the belt with shaking hands. Wayne turned to Dorothy and took her hands in his. Ma'am, your husband was a better man than me. And I kept my promise. I told his son. Dorothy nodded, unable to speak. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 3 years later, Bobby Henshaw enrolled in community college using his GI Bill. He became a teacher. Above his desk, he kept his father's medals, Wayne's letter, and a Western belt buckle. He taught for 37 years. And John Wayne, when he died in 1979, had one request fulfilled, a simple note sent to Dorothy and Bobby Henshaw saying, I kept my word. The paper bag, empty now, stayed in Bobby's closet. He never threw it away. Some promises are kept in brown paper. Some in leather and buckles. Some in showing up when it costs everything. Wayne understood that. Finally.